Erika, hi. Welcome to the Cine Group podcast. I
Hello,
don't
thank
know
you for
why I have this sing song now, but this is probably really fitting to today's conversation.
it is. I loved it. I loved it. Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. Like, if you're tuning in now and you're like, wait, I'm on the musical episode. No, you're not. But buckle up because it's gonna be a juicy one because we're going to talk about a lot about enneagrams and how we're both sevens, and I'm sure Erika will like tell you more about how that shows up in her life and business. So if you know anything about enneagram 7, like, we bring the fun to
Hmm.
any party, so buckle up, this is going to be good. So, Erika, like, give us, for those who don't know you, yeah, give us some, like, walk us through your story. How did you start it? How you got where you're today? What were like your big moments?
Yeah. So my story is very much like an Enneagram 7 enthusiast story. In that I have done a lot of things. So I've been running businesses of all kinds and all sizes for almost 20 years now, coming right up on 20 years. And some were businesses I was running for other people, some were businesses I was running for myself. And then at the end of 2016, I was like, and I will say, none of them had been like a purely online service-based business,
Okay.
like my current one. They were all a lot more like how we think of like more like traditional business, right? So selling
Mm.
most of the time like face to face with people, selling
Okay.
physical products or selling products online, stuff like that.
Hmm.
So, um, end of 2016, I was burnt out. I was in need of a change. I felt like I had reached the end of what I needed to do there in that business, in that very like Enneagram 7 way, when you're like, great, I've done what I can do here and I know it's time to move on. And I was really curious because I was like, I don't know what to do next. And I'm not sure what the options even are. So I just started thinking like, what's the thing I love doing the most? And it was
Mm.
teaching people with businesses how to grow their business in the best way for them. And at the time, for a few years, I had a couple of local friends who were each starting their own businesses, and we would go out to lunch and I would help them like strategize. And I was like, do people pay people for that? Like, I don't actually know if that's a thing. I mean, and now, which is hilarious because there's like a, so many people out there who get paid to do
Hmm.
this work. Um, but at the time, I really had no idea. And so I just started looking into it. And then it just so happened that a really good friend of mine had a business coach, and I was like, or that she had worked with, and I knew of a little bit, and I was like, oh, okay, great. Well, if I'm gonna go online, if I'm gonna switch up like how I do business, I want to work with somebody who's already doing it, who can just help me create those
Yeah.
shortcuts. And so I hired her, and the rest was history. So that was in 2017. So yeah.
Wow. And have you gotten bored yet?
Uh yes. I mean, well, okay, so it's like it ebbs and flows, right? It's like you get bored with like an offer and then you're like, okay,
Yes.
I'm gonna like retire that thing, or I'm gonna zhuzh it up, or whatever it is to kind of make it fun and interesting again. And actually right now I'm going through not a massive pivot, but like a more like a refining, because I have gotten a lot of traction as like the sleaze free sales expert,
Hmm.
right? Which is great. And I love it. And I'm still all about sleaze free sales. But the thing that I have always woven into my work, it's something that my clients have all heard, is that people can't buy what they don't know exists. And I think a lot of what gets missed, especially in the online space, like when a lot of people are just talking about content, is that people are not talking enough about intentional visibility. So it's like people are churning out content and it's not converting, and it's like they're speaking into a void. And part of that might be that they need to do some content tweaking, but it's also like you might not just like have enough of the right eyeballs on you, you know? And so I really love to work with people on not just visibility for visibility's sake, but what I like to call being unforgettable and well paid. So being that person that people reach out to and go, oh, hey, you're the expert on XYZ. I need somebody to talk about that for my podcast or in my summit or for my group coaching program, like that is really how you can reach so many more like perfectly aligned potential clients. And then I'm a big believer in like sustainable business structure. So making sure that people's offers, so it's not just visibility for like the sake of more numbers, but that it actually
or just for
translates
like
into
the like, oh, I want to go viral. Like,
right. Yeah. Not stuff like that. It's like quality versus quantity, and also making sure that that actually translates into money in your bank account. Like, what is the whole route that people are taking from when they find you to being in your offer? So I'm like really going all in on that, especially because the people that I work with and that I love working with they are innovators, they're visionaries, they're thought leaders. They have a unique approach to their work and their industry that deserves to be unforgettable. Like their message deserves to be out there in front of more people.
Yeah, and I mean that's completely different. How you have to approach marketing differently, as you said. People don't look for what they don't know, right? Like you have to find another way in, and that can be tricky. It's a lot of messaging, tweaking, and refinement, and testing and tweaking, and just to see what is working. Oh, I really like that. This is already like, regardless if you're an Enneagram 7 or not, this is solid business advice, people. Because I'm always thinking of like when I hear like, oh, I want to like, oh, I don't know, always when I hear like these like, oh, use this sound so your reel goes viral, blah blah. I'm always like, well, I don't want to end up like that influencer who had like 2 million followers and couldn't sell like a single t-shirt. Like,
oh
no,
yeah,
thank you. Like, rather go with like the 1,000 people who pay me like, I don't know, $100 a year, and I'm like, sweet.
totally. It makes a huge difference. I mean, I've had clients who have, because of the niche that they're in, have hundreds of thousands of clients because it's a type of niche like content subject matter that people like to follow. But they're not necessarily the same people that care about that topic enough to want to buy like a course, a program, a paid workshop, etc. It's difficult. Yeah.
Oh, so maybe since we're on this, what is, apart from like focusing just purely on content and having like the content only goggles on, we already heard you say like you gotta like think about your entire ecosystem, as I like understood you, right? Like, where's the content leading towards, to like how you're turning this into a sale, kind of like the whole ecosystem user journey, however you want to call it. Like, what is another thing that people just get wrong about marketing their online business online?
Yeah. So I would say it is. So, I'm sure you hear all the time people who are like, oh, social media, like I hate it. I wish I didn't have to be on it. Or it's such a time, so, like all of that stuff. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that really what it is, and like, don't get me wrong, it can be super frustrating. Like I'm an Instagram girly. through and through. And like last year, there were so many changes they made, especially in the second half of the year. I was really like,
What?
WTF?
Nothing
Like
is working anymore.
yeah, like it was really, really, really frustrating because I've met like literally some of my best business friends like through connecting on Instagram first. And so, yeah, there are like annoying things about it. But I think that what people forget is I think that so much attention is put on, growing your like social media presence and posting content, and that you're just supposed to be getting clients like from that content all the time. Like that's how the machine is sort of supposed to run. But really, like at the end of the day, people had thriving businesses for hundreds of years before even the internet existed, much less social media. And they did it through connections, through relationships, through word of mouth, through building trust in this very like organic way. And that is still predominantly like for people like us who are like who work directly with clients, right? We are not just like, oh, I have my $2,000 course that I've scaled, and that's it, right? Like we are actually working with clients. So for service providers, consultants, and coaches who still work in some form or fashion with clients, being known as like a trusted person for the thing you do and the way you do it, and prioritizing relationship building is far, far more important than like super stressing out over how many views a reel got or something like that. And so I think that the more like that's really what I've been preaching and I want to keep preaching is that sense of like prioritize connection over like stressing about content to do the heavy lifting for you. Because whenever I ask my clients to audit their clients, like in their business, and I do the same, still like the vast majority are like, oh yeah, my clients come through like some form of relationship, either like a referral, or maybe they connected on social media, or they connected in a group program they were in or something, and they just nurtured the relationship
was the connection
over time
first, and they used social media to kind of like accelerate this connection, to further deepen it, whatever. Yes. Oh, I loved it so much. I remember back when I started like dipping into like the online sphere, I always felt like I remember I was in a community, and they were like, oh, I'm growing all my leads on social media. And I'm like, cool. But it was almost kind of to the point where I'm like, I am almost exclusively referral based in some form, right? Like either people who've worked with me or who I was on a podcast on or whatever. Like it's referrals and connection. And it was almost the point where I'm like, oh, is something wrong with my business because I'm not generating like leads through content on Instagram? Wait, what? Like almost kind of like, oh, is this like shame on me for, or like what? And I had also had a business coach who kind of like washed my head for this. So thanks, Jess. But I love that. And I always also tell my clients who are earlier on in there or thinking of starting their own business, your first, like, it's super, super hard to gain traction on social media, like really traction that converts into sales. And your first couple of clients are for sure are people you already know. Like you gotta start within your network, and then it will grow. Like to approach like a random stranger and be like, hey, I have this, like, do you want to do that? Sure. If your product is super amazing and super cool, can happen. But most likely they already have a connection with you. They know you, they trust you. So
yeah, it's really true. And I know too, like one thing I found when I moved into the online space and I was starting to you know, as you do, like you get online, you're like learning from a bunch of different people, you're consuming a lot of different content. And I remember thinking like, this just feels like a lot. Like it feels
Mm,
really like complex and complicated and like uh it was very different than
mm-hmm,
how I had always been doing business. And then I was sort of like, and I remember being really frustrated at first
mm-hmm,
and then being like, you know what? What is the thing that I'm just like good at that I know I could do, that I could sell super confidently?
mm-hmm.
And it was like, oh, like teaching. I was like, what if I just do like a 2-part half day series locally
Mm-hmm.
and reach out to business owners I already knew in the area and then just be like, okay, we're going to do, you know, I'm going to teach you some fundamentals of sales and marketing that are going to help you to grow your business in like a really feel good, simple way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did that. I like rented a co-working space for
Yeah.
2 Saturdays. I did like the outreach. You know, I made some like really simple worksheets, the whole thing. It was great. It was so much fun. I ended
Mm-hmm.
up repurposing that. It became my first like full-fledged course.
Oh, I love that.
And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and so it was really, really, really awesome. And it was really successful. And I like it made me realize it was like, oh, I just need to stick with what is really uh what just feels almost effortless for me, which is like teaching people as a group. Like that just
Yeah.
like I can do it all day long, really. And so and that way I can also like serve more people at once and like, you know, keep the price lower, et cetera, the whole thing. And so that just was awesome. And from there, I realized I was like, wait. What if I just modify what I did in person, but in the online space? So like as essentially what would be like a funnel, you know, or like part of a
Yeah.
funnel or like an easy way in for people to
Without
work with.
overcomplicating it just by calling it a funnel.
Yes, exactly. And so then I did that. I was like, oh, wait, as I'm building up like followers and my network and things like that, it was like, what if I just hold um free trainings or low cost trainings and things like that that I just host on Zoom. And that way people can join from all
Get a
over.
taster and like
And then it was just like from there things just really really shifted. But I think it's sort of like the blessing and the curse of the online space is that there are so many ways to get to the same end goal that it's really great. Like it opens up a lot of possibility for a lot of different types of people to have success, because if one way doesn't work for you, then there's likely another way that will. But the curse of it is that if you don't know how to sift through all that noise, if you don't know how to discern, then you end up wasting a lot of time and usually also money learning
mm-hmm.
tactics and strategies that ultimately are not going to be great for
Yes.
you.
Oh God. Amen. Like, yeah, sold. It's and I feel there's even like a double, and it's even worse, right? Because the one, like, we're here on the Cine Group, like we all have like that specific way of doing business where we're like, okay, we have the strategic foundations in place, we work smart, and we have fun along the way. We're not
Mm-hmm.
like hustle culture, girl boss, mom entrepreneur vibes. Like, no.
Yeah.
You do that, you do you, we do we.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I feel, and that ties in with like the Enneagram as well. I feel there's so much advice online from people who've made it, like who have like the 7-figure lunch, blah 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 blah, who are, if we talk in like Enneagram talk, who are like a type 8, like a challenger, type 3, the achiever, you know, who are just like, yeah, born entrepreneurs. They're like, yes, just straight shooters. And I feel, I don't know, we as sevens, we're not that. And so you kind of have to figure out, oh, as otherwise you're going to lose a lot of money, as you said. Is this advice right for me? And that is really, I mean, I made that mistake too, where I was like, oh, that sounds like my advice. I joined that mastermind and then realized, oh, holy fucking hell. No to all of
Yeah.
this. Like, what are your, like, do you have kind of like favorite telltale signs to kind of like figure out if this is like, what are your like red flags when it comes, if you want to invest in like a coaching program or something? What are your red flags? Curious.
That's a great question. I would say, so depending on how the program is structured, um, I need to know that it's going to be able to be adaptable or like modifiable, if that's a word. That it's not, so what I mean by that is like that it's not just this is a set framework and we're moving you through it and everybody is going to have the same exact end result, right? And I will say too, like, I'm a heavy investor in my business and coaching. Like, I will be the first to say, like, one of the best bits of advice I would give anyone is to like work directly with somebody that you vibe with, either like one-to-one or in a smallish group, you know,
if you
thing
can't
where you
afford
can get there.
one-on-one yet, get like one of their courses, get whatever, get into their orbit somehow, and then decide.
Yeah, exactly. And like, because then that is going to be like, that's going to be more helpful than just being like, I don't know, like this person just seems to get great results, but like I don't really know if they, but like the rest of their stuff doesn't really like speak to me. Like I just don't have that like gut reaction of like, yeah, this is it. But then like for me, I always need to know if I am joining like a group program, let's say, like is the intent of the program to give people customized advice to help them get to the goal? Or is it like okay, so what we're going to do in here is that you're going to create like, I don't know, a framework and then like a signature offer, and then you're going to run a webinar, and then you're going to do like, where it's very like literally everyone is meant to be doing the same thing. Because that's tricky. Like it can be really tricky just because it's not, even if it is a system that can work really well for many people, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work well for everyone. So like I was in a program I joined a bit over like a year ago now. I'm not in it, like my time in it has ended, but the two questions I asked on the sales call were, do you give people like customized advice, or is it that like very strict kind of blueprint situation? And also, am I going to be required to run paid ads? Because those were going to like, those are my two
red flags,
deal breakers. Yeah, those were like, because like for me, for what I wanted to do, because I've seen other programs where it's like, just do this and they teach you how to do the webinar and everything, and I'm like, that's great, and you don't have to run ads to a webinar, but like if the goal is to scale that thing to 1 million, like at some point you will have to. And I'm not opposed to ads in general. I just don't want to at this point in my life be running.
Yeah. I mean, the red flags are super personal and super tied to the season you're in your business. And I think that is so crucial to like understanding the certain mechanics of things, right? Like that's why I'm sometimes like really getting like the I don't know, slap someone in the face with a chair situation, where I'm like, someone is starting out in a business and then they from somewhere they're getting the advice to do like a $9 offer with like a $9 tripwire or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, sure. But if your audience is zero, how do you think you're gonna get enough people to pay your salary, to pay your living?
Right.
It's gonna come through ads.
Right.
So you need to kind of like have a certain understanding of like how certain business models work.
Yeah.
And I feel there's not so much transparency in the online sphere about certain things. So I like that you said that's kind of like your red flag. And I think it's generally good advice to kind of like, if you want to invest into whatever it is, one-on-one membership courses, whatever, to really be like, hey, what are my red flags? What I do not want. And then go through sales copy or through the sales talk and actually ask those questions and listen what will be the answer, because that's going to save you a lot of money.
Yeah, it definitely will. And I know for me, like, I will not, I won't work with any client that wants to bring in the bulk of their revenue from very low ticket items, unless they have the type of business or systems or like things in place
set up. The foundation is set to do that.
Right. Like if you're like, yes, I can grow an audience like pretty quickly and like pretty large, and I feel comfortable, selling almost daily, or doing something like that to sort of like leverage that audience and or run paid ads, like, then that's fine. Like, we can talk about that. But like generally speaking, I am not working with clients who want to do that, because I'm like, yeah, you will just burn yourself to a crisp. Like, I've seen it enough that like,
way. Yeah. For most people, this is not a sustainable way.
Right.
So I agree. Generally, it's sound business advice to say focus on your one-on-ones first, or like your one to a fews, whatever. So I'm already hearing like, I mean, I do that, and I have my ways of dealing with that. So I'm curious to hear yours. I'm already hearing like my Enneagram 7 mind, like, oh, focus on one offer only. That is so boring. Where? So I know how I deal with it. I'm curious how you deal with that.
Yeah. So I think I would be really miserable if I only had one offer. Because okay, so I pretty much like have adapted my business to work well with like, I really never like to work more than 25 hours a week. It's like 20 to 25 is my sweet spot. And so and I also have like ADHD and stuff, right? So there's like a lot of things where it, rather than wishing I were different and trying to like overlook those elements of me and force it, I just go like, okay, well, this is how I am. Like, and this is the process like I do with my clients and stuff too, which is like, who am I? How do I work best? What is the schedule that I want to work? Like, when am I tired? When am I the most focused, et cetera, et cetera. And I just build around that. And so for me, what that looks like is, like, I really like to be able to think about something, like think of a new offer and be like, ooh, I could do that as an intensive. Like, I love doing intensives, kind of like a VIP day, but it's not a whole day. It's not even a half day. It's usually just like a few hours. And then being able to create like the simplest version of that thing and just like put it out there and sell it as a beta and just see, because I've done it before where I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I keep offering it. And then I've done it before where I've done a few and I'm like, well, that was okay. But it actually made me realize like, I would be really bored, like doing that same thing with individuals again and again and again, privately. But it informed the fact that like, oh, what I really need to do is like change the offer in this way. So for instance, I have a 5-week group program. It's like almost more of like a live 5-week course.
Okay, kind of like a boot camp type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's
Mhm.
not like a coaching. It's not like we don't have like actual like coaching calls, but it's like, yeah. So it's like a 5 week boot camp community called Unforgettable and Well Paid that was inspired by I used to have an intensive called Rad Clients on Repeat. So interestingly enough, that intensive, I did it multiple times. Um, and then I realized I was like, so many people need, like, I'm basically doing the same thing over and over and over. And so many people need this.
Mhm.
Like to do it individually, it was not in
Yeah.
that way, it wasn't lighting me up, right? So I took it and I like took the content and I made it into a paid workshop that people can still get, like they can get it on demand and go through it. It's only like
Yeah.
90 minutes long. And then, so I did that first. And then later, I like figured out, okay, how can I turn it into this like 5 week live boot camp? And then that became Unforgettable, Well Paid. So I could like repurpose those things
Yeah.
into other offers. But I wouldn't have like known necessarily to do that if I hadn't have just been that like fast acting Enneagram 7 that's like, I want to whip this thing up and I'm going to like run several people through it and then taking my like feedback and my experience with it and then figuring out how to that like it's not quite right as this, but like how can I still reuse what I've done here in other
Mm.
ways? And
Yeah.
now
I love
that
that.
group program, I'm turning into like a higher level, like the group program still exists,
Mhm.
but like a higher level VIP day where I am doing it with you. So like for somebody who's like, I don't want to sit through the 5 things and then put it together on my own, like Erika just helped me put together my compelling pitch, tell me like,
Mhm.
where I should pitch, and then what is my like funnel look like on the back end.
Yeah, that's ooh, so much juicy bits to unpack here. I mean, that's probably one of the things that, although we're not the classic entrepreneurial type, we sevens, that is that is our strong suit. Like we're quick and fast, and we're not like we're not afraid to get dirty and to like get it like not perfect. Like just like we run
Mm-hmm.
with it. Like we have it, we see it, we run with it. And that really helps us, right? Because we fail faster
Mm-hmm.
and like see what is actually working and what is not working, and then be like, ooh, okay, maybe I can see. And we're curious enough to be like, hey, how, what did work, what didn't work, and how can I make that what didn't work, how can I make it work, what do I need to tweak? So I really, yeah,
Yeah.
I really like that. And the other part is it comes back down to what you said, right? Building, to build your business around your strengths and personalities and all your things, right? Like I mean, for you it's HCC, for me it's like endometriosis, and just really having days where I'm just low energy and I'm like, no, nope, not having
Mm-hmm.
this. um it's really, it's not to like look how other people structure your business, but to actually look what you want and then
Mm-hmm.
double down on that shit, like really hone in on all of it, like go all in on what is like your type of weird,
Yeah.
right? Like
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. The more that you lean into what feels simplest and best and most enjoyable for you, then yeah, absolutely. Like the better it would be. Like if I
mm,
literally had one signature offer that I was just like, let's say it was like, I don't know, a group program or a membership or something, and I was just moving people into that all of the time. Uh it I know after a while, like it just wouldn't work for me. Like I have so my group program is cohort style. I typically run it a couple times a year.
mm-hmm.
And I really thought last year, like I was like, I am gonna evergreen this. Like that's the quote unquote smart thing to do, and all of that.
Yeah, sure.
But the
On
more I
paper.
thought, yeah, on paper, yeah, because like, financially, if you're like, well, what if somebody comes along after a cart is closed and then, like all of that stuff. Like if if they can't come in, then like maybe you're out that money. But like the more I thought about it, I was like, I like it cohort based.
Mm-hmm.
I really like to keep it small. I like to get to know everyone really well
Mm-hmm.
in there. I like to not feel spread too thin. Like I really, really, really enjoy that
Mm-hmm.
part of it. And so I just had to embrace the fact that like,
This
yeah,
is not going to go evergreen.
like this is how
Mm-hmm.
I like to do this offer. Like end of story,
Yeah.
um and that like by doing that, I can trust that I will have more success with it overall
Mm-hmm.
than if I tried to force it as evergreen. Because the other thing
Mm-hmm.
too, knowing about myself with like the Enneagram 7 and the ADHD, if I know I only if I'm like, okay, for 6 weeks, you're gonna talk about this
And
and pretty much
focus on
only
the.
this.
Mm-hmm.
I can super focus and just do it knowing that there's an end date. But if
Yes,
you
the
were
knowing of
like,
there that there's an end date. Hallelujah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. But if it was like, you're going to be doing that all year nonstop, I would just shut down because I would be
Yeah.
like, well, it feels too vast. It feels
Yeah.
like too much. So
It's kind of
yeah.
like it's too overwhelming. I mean, I know. I mean, I had business coach tell me like, oh, if you sign on one-on-one clients, mostly for the coaching, only sign on 3 months. If you
Mhm.
want to resign, cool. I'll save your spot. That's fine. You can do resign for another 3 months, but I'm not gonna do 6 or 12 month containers. Like, sure, like 12 months of recurring revenue, awesome. But just at this season where I am at, with like a small kid and everything going on, everything figuring out health wise, I'm like, just the sheer thought of a 12-month commitment is like freaking me out.
Yeah.
Like, I no. So why would I want that? Right? Like, okay, yeah, the money, but the bud list is pretty long.
Yeah, that's a really great example too, because I know like, yeah, I have no doubt you could think of highly valuable stuff to do with somebody for 12 months.
Of
But
course.
yeah, if it feels like for you that it's like, well, I can't even plan out that long. I don't even know, like, especially when people put out new offers and they're like, yeah, it's going to be 9 months or it's going to be 12 months. Not that there's anything wrong with that or that it's automatically you're going to like
Mm,
regret it, but I think for me, how I like to look at it is, what if I put this thing out there and then I realize, oh, I actually don't like I actually don't love this, right? Kind of like, so like my that like
mhm.
VIP day I was talking about, right?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't really matter. I think I did like, I don't know, a handful of them, right? But like it's a one off. It's like we're
Yeah.
talking for 90 minutes. I write you up a thing. Maybe we have a little Voxer on the back end. Like that's it. We're not like, I'm
Yeah.
not committed to hanging out with, you and holding space with you for like 9 more months after that, right?
Yeah.
Um, Talking about that same thing over and over and over. So it's like a low stakes trial of a thing. But if you're
Mm,
like, but like like it would be maybe a little different for me now to be like, oh, I'm just going to fully trial run a thing that's like a year long. Because what if I get 4 months into it and I'm like, I am
I
really
hate this.
bored of this. Like, I don't like this. It's not
Hmm.
enjoyable for me. Like, yeah, as the person at the helm, like, I'm not feeling lit up. I know that that is not doing a service to the clients, because if my whole heart is not in it, then
Mm.
I don't feel like I'm honoring their investment in me.
Yeah, and it's just like you're not. you're just, it's not, you have such a harder time holding space for them, and also like kind of like holding their energy if you're like,
Mhm.
like how can you be but be like super cheery when you're like, I mean, some people can do that, I don't know, but super exhausting, like, oh dear lord, no.
Yeah.
um so yeah, that is like always kind of like focus back on what you want, and like giving yourself options, right? Like I always feel it's so interesting, like most of us who started out in corporate are going into self-employment because like we want to make our own rules, we want to have
Mhm.
more freedom, and then we're in business and then we follow someone else's blueprint, someone else's rules, like religiously, and be like, oh, I cannot structure, like I have to do 12-month containers of whatever. I'm like, no, you do not have to.
Mhm.
Like, absolutely not. Like, and if you just want to pump out a different offer every month with like an intense 2 hour intensive, then try it, right? Like there are no rules.
Yeah. And conversely, if you're somebody who's like, I despise the idea of doing a VIP day, I really love to spend a lot of time with folks, like, cool, have a 12-month thing. Like if that is going to light you up, like
Yeah,
do that thing and
yeah,
then make, have people commit to a full year. Like, yeah.
yeah, yeah. And also like that's another thing, like you always have this, and I feel there's so much buzz in the online sphere about like you gotta have a course or you're not an online entrepreneur. And I'm
Mhm.
like, I probably will have a course at someday, but right now I know my magic is in one-to-one work. That's where I have where I deliver the biggest value, make the biggest difference. Not in a course. And why? Because I'm not in, like, that's also why I specifically work in rebranding. I
Mhm.
I don't I don't want to talk to people all over again and all the time, the basics. Like,
Right, right, right.
what is marketing? And what is branding? Like, yes, I do focus on that in my content at points, and there are some nuance to that are super important. But I don't want to do like all of that all over again. Bored. Like, nah,
Mhm. I
nah.
know.
Gotta
Yeah.
give me the challenge.
Yeah, I'm the same. And like I think it's just that like uh it's really easy to go down those rabbit holes of shoulds.
Mm,
And but I know that every time that I've been like, you know what, I'm just gonna go all in on the thing that I love the most, that
mm,
it always works better because like in the realm of selling, I firmly believe, I do not have scientific proof or anything like that. However, I will say that when it comes to selling something that you feel so strongly in, that you're so excited to
yeah,
deliver, that you like are just over the moon excited about,
yeah.
you will be able to sell it so much more easily than trying to sell a thing that you're like, ooh, I don't know. I'm
Oh, yeah.
unsure. I have doubts,
Oh,
et cetera, et
absolutely.
cetera. Somebody just told me
Absolutely.
I should have this thing, right? Like, whenever I've had something or a client has had something that they're like, oh, hell yes. Like, I know who needs this. I know why they need it. This is an amazing price. It's an amazing value, all of
Mm,
that. It, the sales process always goes so much better. And even if it's like a moment in time, because we all have those moments in times where it's like things just get funky and a launch just goes sideways, right? Or the sales aren't coming how you hoped. It also takes the sting out of it and can like allow you the space to be like, okay, let me analyze like what worked, what
mm,
didn't, and like create a plan to relaunch it rather than it feeling like, oh, this is a total failure. I'm a total failure, all of that. Like, again, I don't, to my knowledge, nobody has studied the like, positive effects of your energy towards the thing you're selling in a launch and if it makes a difference. But like, I feel like I have enough anecdotal evidence in myself and in my clients that like when you are fully invested in something and feel like it's amazing,
Yeah.
you can sell it way more effectively than something you're just
Yes.
like, I don't know. I think I should have a course. So I made this course and I think people should
Hello,
buy
here's my
it.
course.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's again something that is that's in our favor, right? Because we're like generally we get excited about every goddamn little shit that's out there, right? Like we're like, woo, I love this. Ooh, a bird, woohoo! Like a paper, like a pen, cool pen. Like so, I get that, but so I'm curious. I'm gonna riff on that, because I think you said, as kind of like a side note, and I want to talk to that more. Like, yes, I do firmly believe that our energy, our vibes transfer to our clients or to our possible potential clients. And I also could not cite any like scientific research on that, but I'm kind of sure that there has been done something on that. But anyway, like, but at the same time, right, there's so much buzz about like magnetism and like feminine and masculine energies and like all that sorts of things. And that's kind of like same as your excitement. Yes, you're probably gonna sell more and more easy and overall more when you're super excited about about your program. But you said it, like as you said, like, but if like when the price is right and everything. So that's the key, right? If your strategy, if your foundations are set, then your excitement and your feminine energies and whatever are going to help you sell. Like if your product doesn't have a product market fit, if your price point is off, like if all the foundations are not there, you can be excited about it all you fucking want. It's not going to sell shit.
Yes, very true. Very true. And that's why, like, yeah, for me, I also don't work with beginners. Like it needs to be, yeah. So if you're a beginner, like but I guess it's like, okay, so I go back to, okay, when I was a beginner and then I thought about how can I do that class locally, whatever. Obviously that's not going to be for everyone because not everyone's going to want to like rent a space and teach a class and create worksheets and all that stuff. But yeah, like think of actual people like, and again, like this is where it comes down to like, think of actual people that you know could benefit from the thing and reach out and tell them about it. Like that is a part of sales. Like I hate to break it to people, but like you gotta sometimes reach out and just let people know that a thing exists and that you think it might be perfect for them.
Yes.
I know that can feel cringe, as the kids say, like,
but you can make it in a non like, yes, it can be cringe, but just do it in a non-cringe way. I mean, what is cringe? Cold DMing. Super cringe. I mean, dear Lord, please, like, let's be 2023, the year where we actually really stop this shit, right? Yes. But you gotta find a way how you can make it non-cringe. And to me, we've said it before, if I'm in a connection with someone and like we're vibing, we're sending each other's funny memes on Instagram DMs, and I have something that I feel like I have this kind of nudge that this could be something, either it's for you or you might know someone, then I don't know, I feel that's not cringe. But then again, I'm not one of the cool TikTok kids, so maybe it is still cringe. But like, right, just find a way how you can make it not cringe.
Yeah, exactly. Just like human to human. That's what I like. My group program, I just had a successful launch. There were several people that I was like, I don't want to rely on an algorithm making sure that they see that this is open. And so, or that they like have seen my emails. So I just reached out and I was like, hey, we talked about this before. So I want you to
Yeah.
know it's like open again. And you know what? Like the vast majority of those folks were like, oh, yeah, it's like, it's still not the right time, or I don't think I need, whatever. But it's like, yes, but I also got many who were like, oh, yeah, cool. Thank you. Like, I'm in. So, um, that is also just a part of it. And yeah, and they were all people I had like relationships with. It was not out of left field. It was not a cold DM. Um, but I was excited about the offer because I know what my program can do for people.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to make sure that they at least knew about it before the doors closed so they could choose if they, wanted to join or not. And if the answer was no, no hard feelings over here. But yeah, so like even if you're
Yeah.
earlier on, like,
Yeah. I mean, you can't influence if they say yes or no, but you can influence if they actually heard about it or not,
yeah,
while
yeah,
not relying on the algorithm or your email provider or whatever, but
yeah,
actually like, hey, yeah. Ooh,
yeah,
that's
yeah. And I would just say like there's no, in that early bit, there's no getting around the like, putting in the reps of,
the uncomfortable bits. The like we're like, I
yeah.
don't really want to do this.
Oh yeah. It's so uncomfortable. I mean, it's uncomfortable at every level. Like that's the truth. It's
Yeah.
uncomfortable at every
It's never
level.
getting more yeah, agreed. Agreed.
There's no set it and forget it. There's no like, great, we made it to the top of the mountain and now we're coasting. It doesn't happen. Like,
Mm-mm.
because you just get different problems. I mean, and that's not to say it's not worth it, but it's just like embrace the fact that like there will be new challenges at every level.
Yeah,
Like,
just embrace the fact that it will never be like clear blue sky, smooth sailing, because you would be bored as fuck anyways.
yeah.
But like there will always be murky bits where you're like, I have actually no fucking idea what I'm doing here, but I'm just wave and smile and
Uh-huh.
like roll with it, right? Like, but
Yeah.
at the same time, really letting that go of like, there will be a point in my business where everything will be like easy and not cringe and like whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, and it doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong either,
Yes.
because like it's just, yeah, there's no, whether your business brings in 50,000 a year or 5 million a year, like every business owner has some area that they're like troubleshooting or
Mm-hmm.
working out or whatever, and it doesn't mean that like they're bad or wrong or
No.
anything. It's just that like
It is what it is.
different. Yeah, it is what it is. It's sort of like if you've never managed people before and now your business is at a level where you really need to bring on some done for you like support,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna have to figure out how to like be a boss type
Yeah.
person, be a leader, like, and that's a
Do
different
and
set of
also,
skills.
yeah, and also like, oh god, so many more, or how to do payroll, right? Like it's a
Right.
completely also different financial planning aspect. There'll always be things where like, oh, ooh, no one told me that.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, in you're bringing on something for everyone, anyone who's listening, you're bringing something cool to work with. What is in the plan for profit guide that people are like, ooh, never heard of that?
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know how earlier we were talking about not selling, a $9 thing and trying to
Yeah.
make all your money off of that?
Yeah.
So, the plan for profit guide, so it's either at bit.ly/plan for profit guide, all one word, all lowercase, or if you just go to erikatebbens.com in my
And we will link it in
resources.
the show notes.
Yeah, if you go to my resources tab, it's in there.
Mm.
And it's a really short set of like worksheets, like it's really brief, and also a really short video that walks you through them. And what it's going to do is it's going to look at what are the hours that you want to be working or can work, you know, in your business.
Mm-hmm.
And then it also looks at the current clients you're working with and like how long it's taking you to deliver whatever it is they're paying
Mm-hmm.
for. And you look at your offer suite and also like how long it takes you to deliver
This
each
offer
of
or
your
that core. Yeah.
offers.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And then also like then how much time is left for like marketing and those like business growth activities.
Mm-hmm.
And so what it's going to do is it's without a lot of like, there's no like complicated spreadsheets or anything like that. It's just going to give you a really simple bird's eye view of like, is the mathing in your
Mm-hmm.
business? If
Yeah.
you
Or is it
say
uncomfortable
that,
truth?
yeah, or is it an uncomfortable truth of like, you need to raise your prices or you need to shift some things
Or you need
because
to hire out or whatever.
yeah, all of that stuff because it's going to like if you're like you know, want to work only 30 hours a week in my business and these are the offers and these are the pricing and this is how long it takes if you know, if I were to be booked out, like you're going to know in like 15 minutes or less that like oh, this is or this isn't sustainable. And then from there, you will be able to make better choices around how you're marketing, when you're marketing, like what you're moving people into, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah.
This is good. Juicy, juicy. Okay,
Yeah.
this is gonna be super, super helpful. And I mean, even if you feel like, oh, I'm good, that's probably like, I don't know, looking at your Google Analytics or your like financial planning spreadsheet. Just do it. Just do it. Like be honest and do it every now and then and be like, oh, okay. I knew it was all good. The numbers say it, the math says it's all good, so we're good. Or
Yeah.
you might be in for a surprise. So I like that.
Yeah.
So tell me also, like, where can people find you online, where you hang out?
So I hang out mostly on Instagram. So I'm over there at Erika Tebbens Consulting. I'm technically on LinkedIn, but like if you friend me over there or whatever, I might not see it for a while. Because it's kind of like a black hole over there. But Instagram, I'm always hanging out on Instagram. And I have a podcast. It's not active right now, but there's over 150 episodes
Wow.
on sleaze free sustainable sales and marketing. It's called Sell It Sister. So you can go and you can binge the back catalog. And then I also published a book last year that's not actually a business book,
Oh.
but it's very much in line with the people who I serve and probably a lot of your listeners, like people who are wanting to shake things up with the status quo. And so it's all about change making. So it's called You've Got This, a counterintuitive
Oh.
guide to powerful, inevitable change making. So if you're somebody who's like, I want to make a difference in the world, but you feel like you got to be Oprah in order to actually do that, I'm here to say that's not true. So that is on, it's on Amazon. So it's self-published on Amazon.
Yeah.
So either Kindle or paperback, and you can get it wherever you live in the world. You should be able to get it. But yeah.
That is brilliant. Okay, we're also
Yeah.
gonna link that in the show notes. And speaking of books, I always have one last question, and
Yeah.
I'm curious, what book are you currently reading, Erika?
Oh, I am almost done with a novel called When Women Were Dragons. And I
Oh,
cannot think of the author's name off the top of my head, but it's really good. It's really cool. And I
is it
love it.
fantasy? It sounds like fantasy, but is it?
It's
No.
like fantasy reality. It's
Okay.
like it takes place in the 50s and 60s and the premise is basically that it's very much like if you're somebody who's, you know, a feminist and you're like down with the patriarchy, I think you'll like it because um it's the premise is that like basically women were getting fed up and then they
Mm-hmm.
like could transform into dragons. And so
Oh,
it's really cool. So
what?
it's not like high fantasy. It's not like
Yeah.
true,
Yeah.
like full on fantasy.
Yeah. Like Tolkien, whatever. Oh,
Yeah. So
okay.
it's really
Okay.
cool.
That's gonna go on my pile. Okay. Yeah, sold.
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, I want to be a dragon. Where are my dragons?
Yes, it's really, really cool. Oh, and I forgot to say, so for my people can also find my book and even read the first chapter for free on my site. If there's a
Ooh.
tab that says book or just erikatebbens.com/book book. And the first chapter is it starts with when I ran for office. So in 2017. So yeah, that's something I've done. I've run for office.
Oh, I love it.
So yeah.
Okay, I feel like we could. I know only in this conversation, I feel like, oh, there are like 5 more podcast topics we could totally talk about. But for now, thank you so much for being on a scenic route with me, Erika. It was, as predicted, it was a blast. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. This was so much fun.